I am the Supreme Irreverend Dr. Randy Tyson, and I took the left at the Valley.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist.
From your favorite Italian restaurant, this is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, I am your French garlic toast. Joining me is the spaghetti meatball team that is good for the show. Tyler, Nancy, how are you guys doing?
Is that better or worse than meat and potatoes?
Well, the question is do we serve you guys with marinara sauce or with rosé?
The more wine, the better. Let's get away from all these. Definitely. Glad to be here, everybody. Glad you're here still listening. Don't turn off. It gets better.
Way to set the bar real low here. Welcome back, guys. I hope you had a good week.
Oh, it's been interesting.
Interesting indeed.
Yeah.
Anything you guys want to quickly chit-chat about before we get into our usual?
No, just the interesting part mostly has been watching U.S. politics and being glad, being glad I can watch it from afar on the side of the border, even though I'm half U.S.
Yep.
It's
getting really, really interesting to see what's going on down there in the States. I mean, allegations left, right, and center are going flying all over the place.
I mean, the big question to me is, and I don't think there's a good answer to this right now, is Trump going to be tossed out by the GOP leaders, or is he going to blow up and quit because he doesn't want to reveal his taxes? Mm-hmm. And at this point, his lovely wife is under a little bit of suspicious behavior because of her immigrant status.
And now, of
which
course,
is ironic.
There's also a whole bunch of allegations, and the only allegations at this point surfacing that Trump was actually kind of paid by the Clintons to run against them to push.
I think that's.
It's allegation. It's allegation.
Nah. I mean, there's so many. I mean, you could put out at this point. You could put out any allegation, regardless of how extreme and bizarre, and somebody's going to believe it because that's the way this whole election campaign season has been going. Nothing is out of bounds.
Okay, but if you didn't want to get elected and you just wanted to do everything you possibly could to not get elected, you would do what the hell Donald Trump is doing. Seriously.
Oh, I've
it's
been
like
saying
he's
that
trying to lose.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Which tells you a lot about his judgment if he really wants to win.
I wanted to talk about his choice for VP. What's that guy's name?
Pence. Mike Pence.
Yes.
That guy is a fucking moron. There's a video kind of circulating, and I actually had a buddy who wrote a pretty good response to it. But anyways, just the whole... his views on evolution and stuff. Mm-hmm. He's like, we came from Neanderthals. I'm like, what?
yeah. He's trying real hard to push creationism in schools too.
Well, yeah, it's like he'd never even studied the basics of it. There's actually this.
He doesn't need to study. He's got the Bible. I mean, come on. Wait a minute.
Jeez.
There's actually
Tyler.
there's actually this debate with Richard Dawkins. He's debating some cardinal or whatever. And they basically asked the cardinal, do you think that, humans evolved from apes? And he's like, yeah, sure, from Neanderthal. And Richard Dawkins is like, from Neanderthal? What? They are cousins.
It's all Richard Dawkins' way. I can just imagine saying that.
It's just so funny when creationists get the most simple things completely wrong, which would have taken 2 seconds to Google, right?
Well, if you really want to go on the edge of rational thinking, if something happens where Trump either withdraws or is turfed to the side, guess who gets to be...
Ted Cruz, right?
No,
okay.
It would be Mike Pence.
Oh, really?
I'm thinking it would probably be Mike Pence.
See, I might just turn religious now.
And then look forward to the debates between Mike Pence and Hillary, who will look at him as a mop to swish over the floors with.
I don't know her views on science in general. To be
She
honest.
seems to be pro-science.
She's pro-science.
Okay.
100%.
She doesn't have any weird beliefs.
No,
like
no,
Jill,
no.
like that whole Jill Stein thing.
No,
I
she's
see
not
people saying that she's not anti-vaccine, and people saying that she is, and it's hard to kind of tell because
Yeah.
it's like she's saying, "I'm pro-vaccines. I'm just against the dangerous chemicals the big pharma might be putting in them." I'm like, what?
Well,
That's like pro-vaccine and anti-vax at the same time.
Well, she's a physician. You'd think she'd be.
Well, look
pretty
at Ben Carson. He's a fucking
Oh,
moron.
that's true. Oh, I'm sorry. Retract that. Erase that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I spoke
let's
before
not,
I thought.
and also, let's not get back into that debate we had last week. Oh, by the way, seriously, did I manage to hold myself up, or was I?
No, you got crushed.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
I tried.
That's okay.
I was on your side, though. I still support you, regardless of what you say. I'm
No,
always
it was,
on your side.
It was good, and it was good, and I'd like to get maybe you can take the same kind of position when we do global warming.
Oh, totally. I I love playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, vaccines would be a good one. Well, because the people who are actually like climate change deniers, they never raise really good points. So
I try to raise really good points.
same thing with like evolution and stuff. Like I said, we came from Neanderthals. I could pretend to be a creationist or pretend to be anti-vax or anti, climate change, and do a much better job than those idiots.
Yeah. So, speaking of being the devil's advocate there, I was don't know if you guys saw when I went on the our friends the Legion of Reason with Randy Tyson there.
I did.
Yes.
I listened to it.
Yeah,
and
so it was a good show. I think we had some fun.
It was. You were the slowly disappearing guest into the
Okay, well, this is
Into
this is
the-
audio
into that
medium.
dark
People
night.
might not realize. Okay, well, for people that are wondering what Nancy meant there is the podcast is actually a video, a vlogcast, I guess is what you call it. It's video anyway, and
well, shit, I didn't know that.
yeah,
I listened to the show. There's video.
yeah, there's video, and it's playing on YouTube, and of course it's via Skype and Google Hangout and all that stuff, and so of course it's getting late here, and the camera's on me, my laptop, the camera's on me, and all that, and it's getting like 8, 9, 10 o'clock, so the light is slowly disappearing, and so am I, because I didn't want to get up from my seat and start turning the lights on inside the place there, so
pretty soon
just-
it was the shadow
it was just a shade in the
nose.
back there, and I was tossing a couple of good back and forth to them, about some of their points. We talked about everything from Black Lives Matter to religion to politics, so it was a good show. And,
It was.
Abortion, death-assisted suicide. I caught that.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to. I threw the invitation to Christine. We already had Randy on, but we'll make sure to bring both of them back on our show. And at that point, they'll be at our mercy. Ha,
Yeah,
ha, ha.
she sounded really hot. Just by the way. I don't know what she looks like, but you started out really, really good on that show because you complimented me.
Oh. I complimented both of you.
I chose not to hear the compliment.
I compliment all of our crew.
No,
even
good show
those
all
that
the
are
way.
sort of
Good show
missing.
all the way around, and it'll be fun to have Christine on our show whenever it works out. Looking
Excellent.
forward to that.
All right, Nancy, you ready to go?
Pretty much.
Okay, let's set you up.
Okay, here we go. And it's This Day in History, which is a roundup of those events and people that altered and illuminated the days between, I can't believe it, August the 1st to August the 7th. Can't believe it's August. August the 2nd was National Ice Cream Sandwich Day. So hopefully somebody somewhere celebrated
Did you bring
it.
some for us?
Pardon?
Ice cream sandwiches? Did you bring
Ice
them?
cream. Well, no, but you're the host. I thought we
But
would.
if I don't know these things, I can't bring them.
Well, why do you have to know something in order to fulfill all of our desires and wants and refreshment needs? I mean, come on, you're the host.
I am nowhere near as brilliant as you think I am.
Moving on from that remark, if all the ice cream sandwiches made last year were placed end to end, they would circle the earth 3.5 times.
That's a lot of ice cream.
There you go for a little trivia in your life to make up for not bringing the sandwiches. In 1776, on August the 2nd, this is really trivia, the voting of the United States Declaration of Independence took place on July 2nd, right, in 1776. It was ratified on the 4th, but it actually wasn't signed until August the 2nd. Everybody
That's
took
what I
the
heard.
time. Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, exactly.
So the whole July 4th thing is a scam.
It's a it's a reason for a celebration. So let's look at it.
Oh yeah, well, the Americans need a reason to party. They don't need a reason to party.
Well, they should have had
For
another.
American audience on there.
That's right. They should have had another celebration on the 2nd.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. We could-
Stat holiday, guys. Take note of this. You guys
That's
in the
right.
U.S.
Absolutely. In 1980, a very sad event in Great Britain. They don't even celebrate this because it was so sad.
What, they elected Margaret Thatcher?
No, actually, it tops that. Frederica the goldfish died at age 40 in 1980.
Whoa, hold
Can you-
on there. A goldfish,
A goldfish lived until
not the cracker.
No, it was
A real goldfish.
A real absolute goldfish, and they could keep track of her age, because they had witnesses. But 40 years old for a goldfish, pretty
Okay,
good.
that's a myth.
How long did it
Somebody was just replacing the goldfish.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, right. When no one was looking, they scooped one out and put one back.
How long do they normally live?
It depends on how well you take care of them. Some of them, you bring them home, and the next day they're, gone.
Okay, I'm going to
But
Google
anyway,
that while
she's going to go, and I'm going to go right on. August the 3rd is Flag Day in Venezuela, and on August the 3rd in 1961, the NDP was founded, and it was a merger of the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation and the Canadian Labour Congress. So happy birthday, NDP.
I'm a huge, huge fan of the NDP, but seriously, how did they come up with the name? They're all sitting around brainstorming ideas. I know, let's call it the New Democratic Party.
Well, I guess they
Ridiculous.
Yeah, they didn't like either one of those names.
I like they should go back to Collective Commonwealth. That just tells you more about the party.
Yeah, I'll have to do a little more research on how it became NDP. Go ahead.
I retract my statement. It says
okay.
right here, the average lifespan of a pet goldfish is 5 to 10 years. In the wild, they can live as long as 25. The oldest goldfish ever recorded was 43 years old.
What website is
43.
that?
Wow.
What website?
It's called pets.thenest.com.
Yeah. So anyone there who doubts anything that is on this day of history, just realize whenever you Google it, it will be there.
Yeah, when you told that story about the CIA wiring that cat and stuff,
Yeah.
I totally thought you were full of shit.
And
I went and looked it up, and yeah, you're right.
Never doubt Nancy. That's a lesson for today. Do not doubt Nancy.
no, that's the fun about it. These things really happen. But thank you for looking it up. It just sort of validates it, doesn't it? Oh, it makes me feel good all over. I want an ice cream sandwich now. Okay, August the 4th was Constitution Day in the Cook Islands, and in 1735, this was a milestone for freedom of the press. There was a gentleman whose name was John Peter Zenger, and he was a writer and publisher of the New York Weekly Journal. And he was acquitted of charges of seditious libel against the royal governor of New York. And this is how it came about. In 1733, Zenger began printing the New York Weekly Journal, in which he voiced opinions that were critical of the, at that time, colonial governor William Cosby. On September the 17th, in 1734, on Cosby's orders, the sheriff arrested Zenger, but a grand jury refused to indict him, and the Attorney General, Richard Bradley, charged him with libel in 1735, but his lawyers successfully argued that truth is a defense against charges of libel. So that's a statute.
interesting.
Yeah, it's a law that really goes pretty far back to the beginnings of the U.S. The New York City jury, which only deliberated for 10 minutes, said the truth is not libelous. So that he's very famous in
They also
citing
say
that.
the truth is out there.
The truth is out there. That came later, much later. Going back to August the 4th, Canada's 1982 Constitution guaranteed freedom of expression and freedom of the press, and the government may legally restrict free speech with the aim of ending discrimination, ensuring social harmony, or promoting gender equality, but the definition of hate speech, which is punishable by law, remains vague. So it's interesting, the difference between the two countries. In 1922, every telephone in North America was silent. for 1 minute at sunset, marking the time funeral services were taking place for Alexander Graham Bell.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he was laid rest in a tomb blasted in the solid rock at the peak of Benbra Mountain and his estate in Nova Scotia, Canada. And I probably murdered that Benbra Mountain name.
You murdered him.
I murdered just the name of the mountain.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm old, but I'm not old enough to have murdered. Okay.
Never underestimate Nancy.
Okay, in 1925, we got a pop quiz. How much do you think the ACLU paid Clarence Darrow for his defense of John Scopes in the monkey trial?
The answer is always 42, isn't it?
Good guess.
It's a good guess.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I will say $200.
Which is another good guess. But actually, Clarence Darrow said to the ACLU, pay me nothing. I can afford it, and I never got more for any money.
Cool.
So it was, pro bono.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love Clarence Darrow. Anytime you read anything about him, he's just a really fascinating,
Seems like a very eloquent
fascinating
guy.
Yeah. August the 6th is Hiroshima Peace Memorial Ceremony. And in 1969, Madeleine Murray O'Hair, one of our favorite heroes.
You need to do a spotlight on it.
Yeah, we do. Filed a lawsuit with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration in regard to the Apollo 8 Genesis reading. NASA had the astronauts read from the Bible on that mission, but the case was rejected by the U.S. Supreme Court for lack of jurisdiction. The moon was not in jurisdiction. Her lack of standing in that suit, because she had nothing to gain or lose by filing it. The effect of the suits were varied. Although NASA asked Buzz Aldrin to refrain from quoting the Bible in the Apollo 11 mission, he was allowed to conduct the first communion service in space. So it's been sort of, it's been sort of a, vague line, so until the moon is in somebody's jurisdiction, I guess no lawsuit will be successful against
It seems to me
reading.
nothing would stop a mission like that than eating a stale cracker.
Yeah, there you go. August the 7th is National Lighthouse Day, National Beer Day, and National Public Speakers Day.
National Beer Day, love it.
Yeah, so somewhere there's a speech ready to be written about all three of those, wouldn't you? Or a book or a short story of some kind. Yeah. In 1927, speaking of peace, the Peace Bridge between U.S. and Canada was dedicated. And, okay, I'm going to leave this up to you guys. I have two stories that occurred on the August the 7th. One is a baseball been good to me story, and the other one is sort of a daredevil story. So give a vote here between the two of you, and whichever one you like.
I'm blind. I'm going with Daredevil.
Okay. And the vote from you is?
Sure, let's go.
Okay, we're going to vote. Okay.
And baseball sucks.
At least today it does. It's non-existent. Here we go. Philippe Petit was born in August in 1949. He was he still is a French high wire artist who gained fame for his high wire walk between the Twin Towers, which sadly no longer exist, the World Trade Center in New York City. And he did this on the morning of August the 7th, 1974. And this was an unauthorized feat to which he referred to as, and you can do this for me, Kevin, le coup. Would it be le coup?
Yep.
Okay. He was 1,050 feet, 400 meters above the ground. He rigged a 450-pound, which was 200-kilogram cable, and used a custom-made 26-foot, which is 8 meters, long. I do this for both sides.
Of course.
I hope you all appreciate it. Long 55-pound, 25-kilogram balancing pole. He performed for 45 minutes. Thank God the time is the same. He performed for 45 minutes, making 8 passes along that wire. So the next week, he celebrated his 25th birthday. He was 24 when he did this. All charges were dismissed because the police were down there and they were waiting, to see what he was going to happen. He had emergency crews down. But anyway, they were dismissed in exchange for his doing a performance in Central Park for children.
Nice.
Yeah, and in 2008, a movie was made called Man on a Wire.
Yes.
It was a documentary directed by James Marsh about the walk between the towers, and the documentary won numerous awards. And Petit was also the subject of a children's book and an animated adaptation of it, which was released in 2005, and it was called another movie was called The Walk. And it was released last year in September 2015, and it starred Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Petit, and directed by Robert Zemeckis. Did you see? You're nodding. Did you ever see? No?
I didn't see that movie, but I remember seeing the previews of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just remarkable feats. Do you admire, or do you think people like that are just plain crazy?
Well, I think both actually. I do admire them, and I do think they're plain crazy because I get vertigo just stepping out of my balcony half the time. So
yeah, you really wonder. I mean, you wonder what motivates them to, to continue. And I just guess the thrill, the challenge of it. You think probably, and that, dear listeners, as we know, brings about a close to another passing parade of interesting, mundane, unusual, and occasionally bizarre events. This one sure was, and people that make up this day in history.
Thank you, dear Nancy, and we'll be right back right after this.
What is secular humanism?
Critical thinking. Knowledge is freedom. Freedom from ignorance and its offspring, fear.
The BC Humanist Association has been active in the Vancouver area for over 25 years. We offer a friendly and welcoming place to make new friends, as well as free educational lectures. We invite you to join us any Sunday at 10 a.m. in the Oak Ridge Senior Center. Please visit our website for more details, bchumanist.ca.
Interested in a particular topic? You ever wonder where we find all this information?
The Common Sense Canadian is a forum for critical discussion of the key issues shaping our world today: water, energy, food security, and how we manage our resources to the public benefit while preserving our environment. So go to commonsensecanadian.ca. It's uncommonly sensible.
Hi, I'm the Supreme Irreverend Dr. Randy Tyson from the Legion of Reason Diversion. Join me and my co-hosts, Christine Shelska, Twyla, and Nate Phelps, as we explore issues at the intersection of atheism, humanism, and skepticism. Topics range from alternative medicine to the interference of religion in public policy. We often have special guests to help us understand the topic du jour. Previous guests include biologist Jerry Coyne, ex-Muslim author Ali Rizvi, philosopher Peter Boghossian, and the late physicist Victor Stanger. You can watch us on the Legion of Reason YouTube channel or subscribe to the audio version through your favorite podcatcher such as iTunes or Stitcher. And don't forget to like the Legion of Reason Facebook page.
And we're back. Today, we're going to have a very bit of a touchy subject. We're going to be talking about ISIS. I know. Who would have thought we'd do that again?
Yeah.
I wish our friend Jim was here.
Me too.
He's actually left. He's gone back east for the next year or so. We won't see him for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Work related.
And he's from Iran, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only met him the once, so.
He's a
That's
nice
okay.
guy.
He'll have good stories to tell when
I'm
he
sure
gets
he will.
back.
I guess we'll see if we're all on the same side here or not, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to bring in our guest here. Tyler, what can you tell us about Anthony here?
Oh, okay. He's originally from South Africa. Well, he'll tell you, I guess. He lives in Australia. He's got quite the accent. So he's getting a degree in philosophy, and him and I talk about a whole variety of subjects. But I've noticed that he's extremely well educated on what's going on in the Middle East, and he teaches me about, the PKK, which is the Kurdistan.
So this is going to be one of those shows where you and him are going to talk, and Nancy and I are going to sit by and relax.
No. I'll try so hard not to do that. But I mostly want to talk about the future of what we can,
Okay.
what they should be doing, rather than just doing a history lesson. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see if we can get into an argument, because that's always fun.
Okay, let's try to bring him on here.
Okay.
All right, our next guest is from down under. We got Anthony Avice Du Buisson with us. Anthony, how you doing?
Hello there, Kevin. I'm Anthony Avice Du Buisson. I'm an essayist who writes for philosophyismagic.com, whose alternative is Philosophy, the Stuff of Magic on Facebook. And I just write on a range of topics from philosophy to politics to history, and I do a couple of poetry and short stories on the side.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, welcome. That's a wonderful resume. You know, must keep you busy.
I guess it does.
So thanks for taking some time out to talk with us. We really appreciate it.
So today you're gonna be our expert, I guess, quote unquote, when we talk about ISIS and the whole Islamic revolution. But before we do that, we're gonna do our segment that we love, called Another Brilliant Moment, brought to you by religion. Excellent. Couple of short story for you guys today. One right here from home in Canada. Did you know that so much for running onto Caesar the things that are Caesar's? In an interview exploring Conservative MP Brad Trost leadership ambition, the Saskatoon Tyler, there you go. Social Conservative offered a thought on how he sees the Conservative Party of Canada fitting into the big picture. He basically said, by big picture, he means, of course, God's word, right? I think God put Conservative on earth to stop taxes everywhere forever.
Okay.
That's their mission, and that's their godly mission, apparently.
Okay. It's always interesting when religion and politics cross, isn't it? God seems to be on the side of the conservatives, according to the conservatives.
Yeah, well, I'm just not sure why God would want that, but I'm not sure how you're supposed to run like a functioning government without any revenue either.
Or infrastructure, roads, you know.
Yeah, is there a plan? You pray for those things and they happen?
It's a good question.
I'm really wondering.
You know those potholes? You can just pray the potholes away.
Pray the that's one. You pray the potholes away.
Pray the infrastructures, the overpass. That sounds like a great idea. You know?
We've all got a lot of money in our pocket. What could be wrong?
But you kind of wonder also, what does God think about his salary? He does make $170,400 per year. So what does he think about that lucrative pension of his? Maybe God's not for that either.
Possibly he didn't think this all the way through.
I think so.
Conservative Christian just seems like an oxymoron because the New Testament is so obviously socialist.
Yes, I totally agree. So that was our fun idea from this guy. I have another quick story. Oh, speaking of Christian, what would Jesus do? Apparently in Florida, a hungry and homeless man was jailed after church officials insisted the man be charged for stealing a few cookies valued at $2.25. God is love.
I guess he never read Exodus 23:11, where God basically instructs people to leave a part of their fields, their crops, for poor people to feed off of.
Well, I think it's the church's fault because I read a little bit about this, and he came into the church. The door was open. There were people there, and he saw the cookies. And I think they were either in a jar, and he helped himself. Now, if they hadn't left the door open and hadn't put those cookies in plain sight, he never... wasn't that an invitation to come in and get the cookies?
Yes, and you know what?
And then they called the cops?
By the story, we can tell that, first of all, that man was desperate because church cookies are the worst. and you know...
they're the cheap version of Oreos, right?
And that's why they're only worth $2.25. But it's amazing that the church insisted on pressing charge against a guy who took a few cookies.
Well, I wonder if did the police actually follow? I guess they had to follow through and take the poor guy. Maybe they gave him a really good meal at the jail. So maybe the story turned out better than we think.
Yeah, I think isn't it Matthew that says turn the other chocolate chip? No, sorry.
See, I kind of hope Jesus does come back and kicks all their asses. Like, see, Yeah, see, I had this debate in my Facebook group, discussion group for intellectuals, and one of the people made a funny comment, and they said, well, he was homeless and starving before, and now he's in jail. Free room and board. I was like, that's pretty sad when you're better off in prison, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think, Anthony?
He's dumbfounded. He said, oh my God, what did I just jump in here?
Anthony, you're an anti-theist, are you not?
Yeah, I'm an anti-theist. I oppose mainly religious ideologies that seek to thrust themselves upon society, either through the political process or through force. And also, I oppose these groups that try to also indoctrinate kids and spread misinformation, especially in regards to science and in regards to politics, and wish to, I guess, fuse religion and politics together, which I don't like at all. But as you guys were saying,
well, and you're from Australia, which is considered to be quite left-wing according to these conservative standards.
The funny thing about Australian politics is that everything seems to be upside down.
Down under, upside down. That's why.
I mean, I was born in South Africa, and I sort of like immigrated to Australia. And Australian politics here, we have the Liberal Party, but it's not the Liberal Party; it's a Conservative Party. We have our leader Malcolm Turnbull, who is the Liberal Party Prime Minister here. Unfortunately, he's Conservative, so the government is actually centre-right wing here.
Oh, okay.
Now, of course, you got the Labour Party here is, of course, you would consider socialist or left-leaning, and the Liberal and National Party, which almost form a coalition all the time during elections, are the right-wingers, and they're usually the religious people, the national people, you get like a split of them, which is Australia First Party, which is like a new kind of how you would say xenophobic organisation within Queensland that's headed by I can't remember her name, but yeah, not to go off too much on a tangent.
That's okay.
I'm ridiculously ignorant of Australian politics, so.
Oh goodness me! I had to fill my mind up in the last couple of months, so do not worry. I'm sort of freshed up. Yeah.
I think they're pretty similar to Canadian politics. Like you said about that, the Liberal Party being conservative. Right here in BC, in the province of BC, not on the federal level, but on the provincial level, we have the exact same thing. The Liberal government is actually in power right now, but they're actually a conservative group, right? So.
Oh yeah, you would consider the NDP to be like a socialist group, and I'm probably a little further left than they are.
Yeah.
I once took this political compass test, or whatever it was.
Yeah, when we have an election.
The results actually said if you were any further left, you'd be in Stalin's backyard. I was like, Stalin, why not Lenin? Give me a break. But yeah, Anthony has written some really good things. Like, what's the Facebook? Is it The Philosophy of Magic?
Yeah, it's philosophy, the stuff of magic. I've had it for quite some time. It's probably about, I guess, it's going on to its third or fourth year anniversary, I guess. But sorry.
Are you going to be able to send us a link so we can actually post it on the notes for the show?
Well,
you don't have to do it now, but I mean.
Yeah, it's I've had it since 2013, and I started off on philosophical writing, like mostly to do with explaining base concepts to people, like essentially what epistemology was, and those I guess base philosophy things. Mm-hmm. And I developed slowly into I guess the political aspect as well, but not to get too much off, I guess, or focus. I have written things on like Marxism.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I've read pretty much all of it. I think I've known you since you started the page.
You're one of the first people to promote me.
Yes, I was. So.
Wow, excellent.
Of course you. Yeah.
So, Anthony, let's talk today about the Middle East and the whole ISIS thing. Give us the pearls of wisdom here. I mean, what do these people want? I mean, is it really social, political? Is it religious? What do you think? What are your thoughts on all this?
Oh, it's as I said. If anyone who actually, I guess, who's looked into the Middle East and all the affairs that's going on there, will tell you that it's a cluster. It's a cluster. It's a mess.
Clusterfuck.
It's a mess of clusterfuck. It's like a mess of interconnected, counterproductive alliances. But to try, I guess, cut through the jungle, if you will, you have ISIS, which is just one of the most recent groups out of the Islamist ideology. Now, Islamism is essentially the political imposition of a version of Islam upon society. So it can either be done through the political means or through force. Now, often you see the jihadists, mostly these ISIS militants, who at the moment are fighting in Syria and Iraq for territory against local militia forces over there, trying to gain control of this region because they are devout to their ideology. And what their ideology is, it's religious political in nature. It follows a very strict reading of the Quran, a very, I guess you could say, literal reading of the Quran. We would call like Salafist and Wahhabist, which are sort of sects of Sunnism, which is just you have in Islam Sunni and Shia. Shia being the small, like 3% to 5% of the globe, and I could say probably I'm incorrect on those numbers. I can't remember, and the majority being Sunni. And out of Sunnism, you've got, of course, Wahhabism and Salafism. And you have, out of those groups, you have ISIS. Now, ISIS, I guess you could say, is a recent incarnation. We're talking about 2014. But its leaders are actually quite old. And I won't actually get too into detail because it's a very long thing to explain. But in essence, for someone who's quite new to the thing, if someone had to go right in and say, okay, what the fuck is happening? Essentially, you have these ISIS militants who are waging an ideological war where they want to achieve, you could say, a global Islamic state or caliphate.
Which is like Sharia law, right?
Yeah, it's not just that. It's more of, I guess,
it's dominion. It's dominion over the world, right?
Yeah, it's entire control of the region, entire control of lands from the kuffar. So now it's taken strictly from Muhammad's, I guess, example, where Muhammad was a warlord who invaded Mecca, Medina, and enslaved the populations over there. But it's taken a strict version of Islam where you have to enslave the kuffar, put taxes on the Christians and what have you. And what they're trying to do is build a state that is close to the time of Muhammad. They are trying to bring back, if you will, technology, bring back civilization back to its basics, back to its lack of human rights, lack of liberties. And they want to do this because they are very devout in their ideology. I mean, there's a famous thing you could hear on the, I don't know what it's called, Nashaz or Nasheed. These are like songs for ISIS militants, and they say we love death more than the infidel loves life. If you can just imagine that, you have an idea of what these ISIS militants want. They want a state of Islam upon society. They want the elimination of the kuffar or the non-believer. They want the elimination of any opposition to them, and they are very strict and brutal in this. I mean, I think a couple of months ago, a boy had his head chopped off for listening to pop music.
Yes, I remember seeing that.
It's that's just one of the many examples. And since I sort of follow this closely, because I've got Twitter, and I love Twitter, but you get the nice side of Twitter and then you get the bad side of Twitter. And I like Twitter. I follow a bunch of analysts who are much more experts on this than me. So this is why I say to people, think for themselves. Like always look up or always go and check whatever a person says or whatever I say and so forth. But I usually go to people like Julian Lenars of the Human Security Center. I go to people to Michael Weiss of the Brookings Institution. I go to, I'm just thinking off the top of my head at the moment, to Douglas Murray of the Henry Jackson Society. You've got all these different individuals from different think tanks, different organizations, and different counter-terrorist organizations who are looking at this, what we call the Middle Eastern clusterfuck, and are trying to find solutions to deal with ISIS. But we know at the moment that ISIS is just one group at the moment of Islamist ideology. And they're at war with another group, of course, which is more well-known at the moment. I know that's hard to say, but Al-Qaeda.
Yes.
And Al-Qaeda and ISIS are actually having a war against one another. The reason why they're having a war against one another is that Al-Qaeda and ISIS have different views of the world. They have, of course, they all want to achieve their own, I guess, their own Islamist dream of a caliphate, but they have different ways of getting about it. I mean, with Al-Qaeda is willing to go and work with, I guess, political organizations or other organizations who may not necessarily be on their same doctrinal or same ideological leanings, but they, do it to get to their aims, like, the ends justify the means, almost like that. Mm-hmm. But ISIS are very, very different. ISIS will say that, okay, if you do not believe in our ideology, then you are our enemy. And that's a new phenomenon. Because before ISIS, we were dealing with just normal sectarian groups like Al-Qaeda and so forth, who were like, they were corrupt, but they were religiously motivated and politically motivated as well. More politically motivated as well. But ISIS is a different kettle of fish, is because ISIS is much, much, much more ideologically devout.
So they're much more brutal in their fighting.
Yeah, they are much more brutal. I mean, for example, they are much more clever and brutal. For example, I say for example a lot, but they have fighters who want to die. They are devout. They want to go fighting to achieve this vision. I mean, they have like they indoctrinate young children to cut off teddy bears' heads, or to cut off, especially like quite recently, about a couple of months ago, when a boy was cutting off a man's, or at least a captured soldier's head. It's like this is the kind of training they go through. These young individuals, these most devout individuals.
Remember Nancy, we talked about this with Jim?
Sorry?
No, I was talking to Nancy. He said we did a previous show, and we actually had a man from Iran here, and he was talking exactly about what you're talking about now. The practice on the teddy bears and practicing on prisoners of war for the kids.
Yeah, it's the thing is that I'm not, as I said before, I'm not necessarily a quote unquote professional when it comes to this stuff. For the last couple of months, I've been, I guess, in how you say, engulfed in it, or I guess I've soaked it up, if you will, in the communities that I've worked with. And
Anthony, don't be so hard on yourself. There is no professional on this situation. I mean, this is pretty unique.
You're actually really right on that question. It's like people like, you have a lot of analysts, and you have a lot of pundits, and you have a lot of spectators who actually do have a lot of valuable things to say on this matter. But my take on it is that ISIS at the moment are waging not only an ideological war, but they are inspiring others across the globe to take up arms or take up their cause as well. Like, I mean, if you look at the Orlando shooter, who killed, of course, 50 homosexuals, 50, what did I say homosexuals? I mean, 50 LGBT individuals in that nightclub. He was inspired by ISIS. If you look at the Paris shootings, or you have the recent killing, the car killing in Nice, France, like with the big truck, like that. These people were inspired by ISIS, and that's what ISIS wants. They want a war where people are actually getting inspired by their ideology to fight throughout the globe. This is a scary thing if you think about it.
But if let's just say they win, blah blah, all this stuff. I want to get to the specific complaints here. Is that if they are in charge, then what's the main issues, which is, girls get acid thrown in their faces for going to school, women aren't allowed to leave the house, they're killing homosexuals, they're killing pretty much anybody who's not a Muslim, and that's kind of what we're trying to stop from spreading, right?
It does have to do with that as well. I think there's, especially when I speak with a lot of my friends who are, I guess, politically savvy, or at least are trying to come up with solutions to this, because it's like trying to say a solution to a huge problem. It's like you will never find like an ultimate solution, but there's been attempts at it. At the moment, what a lot of governments are doing across the globe is they're putting money into counter-terrorism and into terrorist analysts and those groups to come up with like plans, and they're putting a lot of money into the military as well to come with the plans to deal with ISIS. Because at the moment, what America's doing at the moment is at least coalition troops are aiding Kurdish fighters. Like these are the our allies in the Iraq and Syria who are fighting on the ground like ISIS. So these are the YPGs, which is the People's Protection Unit and the Women's Protection Units and the Civil Protection Units. They've got different insignia, but I won't get you confused with that.
So like the PKK, right?
Yeah.
Which is like...
Oh, well, the PKK is...
the Kurdistan Workers' Party, is it not?
Yeah, it's the Kurdistan Workers' Party.
They're secular,
Turkey.
are they not? Are these are secular groups,
well,
right?
Oh, okay. I don't want to like. It's like I don't want to get like people getting confused. So like we're going off on different.
Yeah,
things,
no. I want to address why there's such an issue. Like because it's not just that they're means. It's not just that they're being brutal. The means to an end. Their end is a society that nobody wants to live in. All of us would be dead if they were in charge of Canada. Lots, gay people. Like I said, any atheists, any non-Muslims, nobody, like the vast majority of people don't want to live in that society, and that's what we're trying to stop, right? From spreading around the world, because 90% of people don't want to live in that society. But what the hell are you going to do about it? And when I get into these debates with people on the right and people on the left both get pissed off at me.
Yeah.
Because I say, I used to be this, bleeding heart liberal that said, let's just... leave them alone and they'll collapse on their own. But then I realized I'm a humanist, and it's kind of like seeing a little girl getting raped in a back alley, and you say, "Oh, well, that's not my problem." You know what I mean?
Well,
is that a fair comparison, Kevin?
No, I don't. Well, I don't think it is. I don't think it quite is.
What's the difference between saying, screw the Muslim countries, let them do whatever they want, it's not our problem, and then my example of the
because one is a violent crime and the other one is an integrating culture. So you have to be a bit more delicate on something like that, I think.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Violent crime, like killing non-Muslims and throwing acid in the faces of little girls for wanting to go to school. We can't just stand by while countries do stuff. Yeah. This is why we have the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, and this is why we have the Geneva Convention, and nobody's enforcing it. Now, I know that goes for North Korea and other places too, but shouldn't we be enforcing these laws? I mean, they created, have you guys heard of the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights?
No.
Okay, so within the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, it basically says that you can't persecute people based on religion, right? Well, the Muslims didn't like that, so they created their own Declaration of Human Rights that says we can do whatever we want in that regards.
I need a point of clarification.
Okay.
We're because I really get confused about this. We keep talking, or during this conversation, we're talking about killing of non-Muslims, but isn't it? Is it true that the radical groups like ISIS and ISIL go after Muslims if they're not conservative, if they're not believing the way? So it really it's not a matter of Muslim versus non-Muslim. It's believers versus non-believers.
Fundamentalists versus moderates and non-believers.
Right. I mean, am I correct?
Yeah,
Anthony, am I correct
there? That's a good point.
Yeah, that you're actually very correct. I mean, ISIS don't. For example, we say like we can distinguish between a liberal Muslim and an Islamist. I think we can all do that. We all have at least spoken to normal Muslims, like at our barber shop or a kebab stand. I don't want to say stereotypical, but a kebab stand.
Don't stereotype there at all.
Isn't that it's like comparing Francis Collins to Ken Hovind, isn't it?
Pardon me?
It's like comparing Francis Collins to Ken Hovind, because Francis Collins is, very liberal and open to science, and Ken Hovind, it puts the mental and fundamentalism,
if I can just
right?
quickly finish that point, that we know we can distinguish between liberal Muslims and Islamists. What the Islamists cannot do is that when they look at, like, when they see, like, liberal Muslims, like, enjoying secular values like we do, like as normal people do, what they see is they don't see Muslims. They see kuffar. They see like people essentially non-Muslims. They say, okay, when we bomb in Tunisia, or when we kill a bunch of people in Tunisia like that, and they all happen to be Muslim, they aren't Muslim in our eyes because they don't follow the doctrine strictly like we do. Yeah, they are not Muslim. We are Muslim. They are not.
The no true Scotsman fallacy, right? Yeah, they're not real Muslims.
Yeah, and the thing is that this is also I have to bring, I guess, the political aspect. Like for example, I'm a classical liberal. That means to say that I believe Enlightenment values. I believe that these values are universal, that they are to all people. I believe in the values of free speech, freedom of thought, freedom from worship, freedom of the press, freedom of association, what have you. I believe these to be universal. However, a lot of classical liberals will are very pacifist. They'll say, okay, we shouldn't go to, I guess, we should be very interventionist, or we shouldn't be very internationalist. I'm different. I have a little bit of a hawkish foreign policy when it comes to that, but that's another matter.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I mean, very hawkish when it comes to foreign policy. I mean, I have a friend. I won't mention his name because I don't know if you know how these things work. But we talk about foreign policy all the time, and I always debate with him because he's more authoritarian than I am. Because since I'm a classical liberal, I oppose authoritarianism. I'm an anti-totalitarian. So just to quickly explain what totalitarianism is, not to get people too confused, is that totalitarianism is essentially when the ideology that professes the totality of control, when someone wants the desire of total control over others. It's very different to authoritarianism, where authoritarianism is, of course, centralized power in the hands of the few, but it's very absent of the socio and economic dimensions. So it will not involve the social or the economic realms necessarily. Totalitarian regimes involve, the economic and social dimensions. So, this is the difference between, I guess, Putin's Russia and Assad's Syria. Assad's Syria has the press that is completely tuned to Assad, has secret police, has killing of baby children, what have you, and is entirely a tyrannical state that is, I guess, at all levels monitoring, or at least at all levels trying to oppress its people. Putin's Russia is different. Putin of course has state media, has RT, which is Russian Today, which is the state media of Russia. It's a very different scenario, those two concepts. But now to get back to my point. Now, when I said about being an interventionist, what I meant is that I support those individuals who, I guess, we need to, I guess, not be spectators to injustice. I think that's the main thing. I don't like, for example, when a rape's happening in front of me, I'm not going to sit back and do nothing and say, okay, I best not interfere with the little girl getting raped by that man over there.
Because it's their culture, yeah.
Yeah, I want to help that people and help the person there. But when I debate with my person who's authoritarian, my authoritarian friend wants, I guess, to let the government have complete and utter, I guess, control of change. The difference, I think, between classical liberals and what he would be called a neoconservative is that a classical liberal wants cultural change, so a bottom-up solution, while a neocon wants a top-down solution, so the government doing completely managing change. And this goes back to the point on how do we fix these the problem with ISIS and Islamism and that.
No, and I want to cut you off there just for a sec because I want to.
It's very impolite.
Well, I want to ask Kevin and Nancy, both of you, to answer. What would you do? What do you think should be done with ISIS and whatnot? Because clearly, Anthony and I agree we need to go around and enforce the Geneva Convention and blah blah blah. So I want to hear your guys' perspectives, Kevin and Nancy.
Well, before I put that, there's a question that's pertinent to this. I want to ask Anthony. Is Anthony? Yep. You said at the beginning, the difference with ISIS is inspiring these rogue people to come up, like the attack in Nice and the attack in Orlando. I think the question is why are these people inspired by an ideology that is so violent like that? What is it in their life that drives them to seek refuge in this? And I think you might have part of a solution there to the problem.
I would go the same. I'm on completely the same page with you, Kevin.
I'm not saying it's all social, economical. Of course, there is religion in there, but there has to be something in that person's life that drives them to desperately seek answers in a violent ideology.
Well, the thing is that if we take the Orlando shooter, for example, his father was a very an Afghani, I guess, Islamist. His father was from Afghanistan, an Afghani Islamist. He got the material from the dark web, or we would call the deep dark web, what have you, where ISIS promotes their material, in the form of pamphlets and manifestos that you can get on all those servers that aren't checked, I guess, necessarily by site or however that stuff works. But the thing about them, what inspires people like that, I guess, is that this combination really is that you have not only ideology, like ideological devotion, someone who believes that, okay, has a spark in their eyes and says, that they have the right view of the world. Their view is right. What can I do to do it? So what do? They get in contact with the local ISIS individual, because you know what, ISIS individuals, they have a clever network. They're very clever with social media. Like, they get in contact with individuals on, like, who are much. They look for characteristics in individuals that are very prevalent, I guess, in terms of, like, I guess, awkwardness or an inkling towards a cause they want to fight for, and they target those people specifically, and they help those people get in contact with them, and they provide material to them, and they say, okay, pretend you just go smoke, go to gay bars, do whatever you can in the Kufar lands, do whatever the fuck you can in the Kufar lands, but when the time comes, you have to activate sort of like your ideological drive and do this job. Or in the case of the Orlando shooter, it's to kill 50 LGBT people at a nightclub. That's just one example. It's the same with the niche person. Is that these individuals, they have certain qualities that ISIS likes, and they get in contact with these people. Now, that's not always the case. Some of these people go to ISIS because they're searching for a cause to fight for, often at times. But the real clever ISIS fighters, or like the real, like people like Baghdadi, who is an imam, and that inner circle of ISIS at the moment, these people are very clever in terms of not only their political, but also their religious strategy. And what I think the solution to Islamism is a multi-pronged solution. So I think that on the one hand, we should actually spread free thought, spread free thought in terms of spreading education in the form of teaching people how to think. Mm-hmm. I think that's a basic thing that would actually help. Instead of people relying upon an arbiter for their knowledge, they are instead equipped with the tools to not only think for themselves, but also be able to thirst for knowledge and thirst for reason and evidence. That's one approach. The second approach would be also to fund counter terrorism think tanks. Like, one of them is in Britain at the moment called Quilliam Foundation. And the Quilliam Foundation is, its co-founder Majid Nawaz is, I think he's notable in a lot of circles because he's discussed with Sam Harris, and they co-authored a book called Islam and the Future of Tolerance, which I recommend everyone read. And it's essentially, he has a lot of experience because Majid Nawaz is an ex-radical Islamist. So he's an ex-Islamist. He's an ex-Islamic fundamentalist. But he's still, of course, a Muslim, but he's a liberal Muslim. That's another thing altogether. On the third prong approach is that we also attack, ISIS from a military perspective. We take down the devout jihadist fighters, with our military, with our special forces, with our backed Kurdish forces. And I think on the fourth level is, of course, stop the misinformation surrounding this topic. Because you have a lot of politicians like Barack Obama and the then, until now, David Cameron, who was the now former Prime Minister of Britain, who didn't want to name the threat of Islamism. Now, I call it the threat of Islamism because Islamism is, of course, an ideology, but it also has to do, since it's an ideology, it also has to go onto the language level. So how politicians speak about it. So you have Hillary Clinton, who always, says that, this has nothing to do, like these attacks in Orlando or in Nice or like that, they have nothing to do with Islam or something like that. That's entirely wrong. It does have something to do with Islam. And
I think we'd all agree, Gavin?
Oh, yeah, well, certainly, I certainly agree with that.
Yeah, and the thing is that you have to name the threat of Islamism, and that's all it takes. And the thing is that a lot of these politicians are doing or not naming the threat of Islamism purely because they don't want to either offend Muslims or offend the sensitivities of Muslims, or they don't want to be viewed as this recent term Islamophobic. Yeah. And I think you guys have heard that term.
Yeah, we're pretty anti-regressive left, I guess we would say.
Yeah,
we've talked about that quite a bit.
I think maybe one of the issues here is if you were to replace the word Islamism with something else that, like black, it's a black problem, then you would have an entire population of black people having an issue with that. And I think that's what the authorities have a problem with by saying Islamism. Yeah. They don't want the rest of the Islamic world saying, hey, We're not into this.
Well, I say I'm anti-Islam. I'm not anti-Muslim. Just like I'm anti-Christianity, but I'm not anti-individual Christians.
Can I just quickly interrupt for a second? I don't want to cut you off, Tyler, but...
oh, go ahead, cut him off.
You're going to have to.
Yeah, the thing is that's why the whole term Islamism exists. It's an entirely politically correct word. I believe I'm against Islam. I'll say that I'm against Islam. However, I cannot say that in politics, because in politics they think that you're against every single Muslim, unfortunately. So what you have to do is with Islamism is that Islamism, as I said, is a political ideology which an individual wishes to impose a version of Islam upon society. So when you say someone is an Islamist, they are a person who wants to impose their religious ideology either through the political system, like you have political Islamists, like I guess the Muslim Brotherhood or what have you, who tried to impose Islam upon society through that means, or the jihadists. But the Islamists are essentially the Islamic fundamentalists. But I can't call them Islamic fundamentalists because a lot of people have a problem with that language. So I have to use Islamists. And then I'll say there's the liberal Muslims. So there's the liberal Muslims, the Islamists, the conservative Muslims, which are actually kind of are sympathetic to the Islamists. And then you have, of course, the non-Muslims. Yeah.
Now, would this be easier to say instead of using the word Islamist, if they use the word... like for example, on the flip side, you get the Christians, but then you have the Christian dominionist. So if they use the word Islamic dominionist, maybe they would have a better success than just saying Islamist.
Well, that's the problem. Is that ultimately this is all a language game if you think about it. Because in politics, unfortunately, semantics. The thing is that in politics, it always has to do with a language game. I mean, if you look back in the 90s, George Bush, or like George Bush Sr., said Islamic fundamentalists. He called the Mujahideens, or, like Al-Qaeda, Islamic fundamentalists. He never used the word Islamists, or what have you. This is a recent term. Why? Because unfortunately our sensitivities have become, I guess, heightened in terms of the political sphere, especially in the West, and which is very disappointing, because if you look 20 years ago, like even 30 years ago, these kind of, I guess, language sensibilities with this identity politics or this kind of touch and feely when it comes to how you say things to certain people, it wasn't as it is today. Now today, politicians have to go through a minefield of what words they must say, what words they can use to not offend people. And that's the problem, is people's sensitivities people are a little bit pussified, I don't like the word pussified, but not pussified.
You should look at the history of like the terms for mentally challenged people. Like they were called morons, and that was totally fine. Yeah. And they were called idiots, and it keeps changing. It's political correctness. Yeah, and then you're specially challenged, and then they didn't like that, and mentally disabled, they didn't like that, and all these they just keep changing it and changing it and changing it. They don't do shit about it, but they keep changing it. So
they just call it Kevin today.
Now, but now when we talk about what to do with this whole Islam thing, like Hillary Clinton's kind of beefing up, the military and stuff because she's going to win and go over there and fight, and that's all good and fine. We're talking kill, but I think the key is you can't go in and kill all the bad guys and then just leave. You got to rebuild the economy and schools, and just like Anthony said, you have to have education. We need to set up good schools. I mean, if you just leave all these people poor as shit after you killed all the bad guys, they're just going to come back.
We just have to take the Iraq War, or at the end of the Iraq War, and like when Obama pulled out troops in like 2011. We had tried for a long time to keep Iraq up. We had got rid of Saddam Hussein, which was a success, but unfortunately we weren't there for the long term. We didn't actually maintain as much as an effort as we would like to the state of Iraq. What happened when we left? I don't want to use the word vacuum because it was not that the case. The ideology already existed, but I'm talking about the groups. The sectarianism started to come up to the surface again, where you have these militia groups that come out of one another, and then you have not the creation of ISIS. I mean, ISIS already kind of existed, its leaders were already there, but the name of ISIS, or the Islamic State, came into being in 2014 because of the sectarianism.
Okay, but I want to know what I want Kevin to answer my question about what he thinks. What would you do if you were president of the United States, Kevin? in regards to this problem? Same with you, Nancy. I want to hear from both of you.
That's a very big question to answer in a very briefly like this. But you know, the idea of going in guns blazing and killing, there's just one problem with that. And Jim used to say the same thing. He says, you know, these people need to be eliminated. The problem is these people are also fathers and mothers to kids and brothers and uncles. And the family will seek out revenge eventually. So no matter how many of them you kill, right, there's always going to be a couple that are going to show up and say, you know, look at the West as being this nasty imperialistic force that destroyed their family. So I'm not so sure that going in there guns blazing is such an effective solution.
Well, you could say that about anything. You could say, well, we shouldn't go and kill the Nazis because their family members will just fight back and they'll get even stronger, right?
Well, to try and clarify what we would do as president is tough, because the president at this point doesn't know nobody has a handle on exactly what to do.
You talk about
part of it,
President Trump?
Yeah, President Trump. Part of it is
they just say kill the bad guys. Yeah. Okay, good solution.
Well, I think part of it is that you have the ideologues. You have people like Assad, bin Laden, who came from a wealthy family, and yet he honed his beliefs, you know, to be able to gain more power and also to put forward his beliefs. So you have this whole group of leaders or thinkers or religious leaders who are fueling this because they either want the power or they absolutely believe that the return to the basic tenets of Islam is the only solution, you know, for the entire world, regardless of what their religion is. And then you have people who are poor and desperate and fueled with hate against other governments. You have the Palestinians who are never going to, at this point, we hope they are, but they're not going to be reconciled with the Israelis. Their homes have been taken away. The leaders their leaders have, I think, deliberately kept them poor and deliberately kept them in a state of turmoil so that they're amenable to violence and to the will of the leadership. So you've got the guys at the top, you've got the desperate who really believe that death is better than the life that they lead, and they are vulnerable enough to say, sure, I'll be a suicide bomber, because what have I got to lose? At this point, if I'm a suicide bomber, I can bring glory to my family and have a better life. Yeah. So you've got that, and then you've got countries who are not as sensitive to the nuances of Islamist or Muslim or conservative, but they use the words in order to promote the jingoism and the, as you were saying, Australia first, to promote America first. So you have that whole military-industrial complex that uses all of this to be able to say, yeah, we can build up the military, we can do more bombs, we can do more airplanes, we can do more more fighters, and they can keep that whole section of the government going. So you've got an intersection of so many different beliefs and interests and power groups and human misery to try and figure out, okay, they need more self-governing, they need more empowerment, they need free thought. These are all wonderful things, but the question is, how do you bring these things about by reducing the amount of hate that exists between all of these groups? That's long story, but I didn't mean to take up that much time. But to me, if Anthony and others have ways of influencing the politicos on how to go about this, I hope they exert all of the influence they have.
There's no one bullet solution to this.
No, there really isn't.
Most people I know don't know anything about the Kurds, and I think Anthony and I are both saying that we need to replace these crazy fucks with these more secular, sane Kurds, right? Exactly. Is that correct, Anthony?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll say that. That's exactly what we have to do. But unfortunately, this thing about these Islamists that are happening over there is that the sectarianism that is going on, and I argue with this with my friends. Like, I know people in the military, I know military personnel, and I know different people, different backgrounds and what have you, and we all argue, and we never come up with like what's the problem really in the Middle East is the sectarianism, the religious infighting that's going on. It's been going on since the end of Muhammad. These sects have been fighting with each other. The problem is that there needs to be the Reformation, if you will, like not in terms like, I mean a Reformation in terms of thought in Islam itself, or the religion itself. And these groups need to, I guess, somehow come to an end. But the thing is that they won't come like to peaceful, you could say, negotiations with one another. They all have their own interests. They all have their own wants. And it's essentially like, which group are you going to promote? I mean, at the moment, the US supports the Kurds, which is good, but they also support Turkey, which is bad, because Turkey hates the Kurds. So what is this? That's a counterproductive quasi-alliance, and you have a lot of those alliances going on in the Middle East. So essentially someone's shooting the hand of another, and the other guy's shaking the hand of another. It's like, you have this like for example, to come back to Turkey, like, you know why we call the PKK and the YPG different groups? Is because the YPG are actually, the PKK, or the Kurdistan Workers' Party, are actually the YPG, except in Turkey. The reason why America distinguishes them differently is because of politics, because they don't want to say, they distinguish, for example, the PKK as a terrorist organization because of Turkey, because Turkey considers it as a terrorist organization. And Turkey bombs at the moment Kurdish forces in, say, for instance, areas like Shaki Maksud,
which helps ISIS, right?
That it helps ISIS as well. And the things like, we have forces like US at the moment has coalition forces, backing up these groups and say, push the fight to them. And then they have to sort of say to Turkey and say, guys, we don't want to offend you, we don't want to break our trust, so we're gonna turn a blind eye to you bombing the shit out of our allies, and we're just going to continue this fake alliance that we have, which I hope they break, because it seems that with the whole failed coup on Turkey, and that what's happened recently is that I hope that Erdogan becomes, oh God, this is bad to say, but I really hope that the alliance between Turkey and the US fails.
So do I.
Because that will help us, it'll help us, I guess, push with the Kurds more. But at the moment, the US wants to keep that alliance, and this is what I mean. It's
Turkey's a part of NATO, right?
Sorry, what was that?
Turkey's a part of NATO, right?
Yeah, Turkey is a part of NATO. That's the shocking thing. Let's take Turkey, for example. Turkey has a lead at the moment called Erdogan. He's been president of Turkey since 2014, but he's been prime minister since 2003, when the formation of the Justice and Development Party, or AKP. The AKP regime is an Islamist regime. They want Sharia law. They want an Islamist republic, or like the same, how we call Iran, the Republic of Iran, even though it's not really a republic, it's a misnomer. It's an Islamic state.
Yes,
it's the same. They want the same with Turkey, and what Turkey at the moment is doing is that they hate the Kurds. They don't recognize them as a proper ethnicity. They want to kill the Kurds. So what they do is that they bomb the Kurds not only outside of their borders but also inside. They also They blame the PKK. By the way, the PKK is not completely innocent. They've also killed people as terrorist acts as well. They've done that as well. I won't say that they're a clean slate. But I'm saying that the Turkey is just one organization that's allied with the United States and has been in NATO since, I think, 1947. They've been a part of NATO for a long time, and they used to be a very secular country. If you look at Mustafa Atatürk, who's the founder of the modern Turkish Republic, he was a very secular person. If you look at his speeches, he's one of the most secular people in the Middle East at the time, in the 1940s, and people loved him. But the problem is that since the late 90s, since the rise of Erdogan, the country has become more Islamist. And this failed coup, which the military tried to do to try, I guess, halt Erdogan from taking complete power, more power in Turkey, has failed. And because of that, you'll see Erdogan rise to the status of totalitarian.
Oh yeah, we're seeing that already.
Even Afghanistan was a pretty decent place that had women's rights and everything until 1972?
No, that was Iran.
I'm talking about Afghanistan. Iran probably. I think Iran, their whole revolution, they had one in 54 and in the 70s. Afghanistan is the same too. Absolutely, they had women's rights, and the next thing you know, one of these non-secular crazy bastards gets in charge, and everything goes to hell for decades. So that's why we need to support the moderate Muslims and the Kurds. But okay, so another thing about Anthony is that he's a big fan of Christopher Hitchens, right?
Oh, I love this guy already.
Okay,
Anthony will love you.
Okay, so Christopher Hitchens has this thing. He's speaking at the Freedom from Religion convention, and at the very end, you can help me out with this, Anthony, because your memory's probably better than mine. It's probably the last 12 minutes, and they're doing the Q&A period, and the guy, one of the audience members, kind of stands up and says, you know, every time you go out and you are killing these terrorists, you're just creating more. You know what I mean? Like 2 or 3 sympathizers, so they're getting stronger, that kind of thing. And Christopher Hitchens basically says, well, then fuck it. We should just give up and give the world to them now. It's like that with that Greek tragedy, whatever story, where he throws the bad guy down. Every time he hits the ground, he gets stronger. And he points out a story where Osama bin Laden, they invaded this country and they started slaughtering all the children and all this stuff. And the U.S. didn't let them do it, so they blew up a building of the United States. That's your choice. You know, are you just gonna? They get pissed at you because you won't let them kill children. That's the annoying part I find when people say things like what you said, Kevin. No offense, I still love you, but when
wait, you got annoyed at something I said?
When you kill a terrorist, you create more. Well, then you know what? Fuck it. Let's just give. If they win if we don't fight them, and they win if we do fight them, then we should just give up. Do you remember that speech, Anthony?
I remember, I can vaguely remember, because I've got 2 different speeches in my mind at the moment. But I think essentially there's only really 2 ultimate political positions. And I'll say that that's between the internationalist and the nationalist. A nationalist will only look out for his own country's interests. Like, why should we go over there? It's not in our own country's interest. Like, we're fine over here. Let's not do anything. Let's just let the other countries solve their own problems. We have our own problems first, and that's noble. That's called an isolationist position as well. America was an isolationist country for a long time.
World War II.
World War I.
Yeah, World War II. Even until 41, then they're like, oh fuck, and then they got involved.
Now let me just finish my point.
Yep.
The internationalist position is much more. Sorry, the internationalist position is more of a fusion for that like. That urge that you feel, like when you feel someone's being beat up, like next door, and you hear them each and every single day, like they're getting beaten up, their wife's getting beaten up by an abusive husband, and you're there sitting each and every day, and you hear her screams each and every single night, and you say to yourself, I should do something, but I can't. Like that's an internationalist feels in their blood. They feel a pulse. They say, you know, I have a fucking humanity. I want to fucking help people. There are people dying across the world. Sure, I may not help everyone, but at least I'll fucking try.
Yeah, okay, hold on a sec, because that analogy is very apropos. Because in real life, and this is a situation that actually almost happened to me, where you see a woman being beaten by a man, what they will tell you, what any person worth their salt in security will tell you, is you don't jump the guy. Right? You have to approach a woman and say, lady, do you need assistance? Because if you jump the guy, like a red-blooded, a bit of a hothead, she jumps in with him.
Yeah, that's I was going to get to that, is that, of course, there's going to be, of course, a diplomacy or, I guess, a negotiations of sort that is going to be before, I guess, that fire. But there are times, like, for example, when it comes to Saddam Hussein, we were watching him for a long time. We had first initiated help. We actually had helped Saddam Hussein in the early times in like the late 70s, early 80s in the Iran-Iraq war. We had helped him for a bit.
I don't know who we is, but
because we've
the United States. When because you're saying
the West.
There's no Canada wasn't helping, so.
I mean, sorry. Sorry. I've always got this mentality of I'm like, fuck, it's not coalition forces, Anthony. This is the United States you're talking about. Okay, the United States sort of aided Saddam during the Iran and Iraq war, and for a long time, Saddam Hussein was left to kill and butcher, and we for a long time we tried our best we did like we saw the evil in the early 90s, and even during the 90s, during the Clinton administration. Clinton tried to put especially with the UN, tried to put heavy regulations against Saddam Hussein, but didn't do anything. Of course, when September 11th happened and the 9/11 happened and all that kind of stuff, it was that moment where I guess it was actually we came in a little bit too late, but sorry, no, we didn't come in. I mean, fucking the US came in a little bit too late, but we at least came in nonetheless, and we stopped the dictator from continuing killing. And you know what? A lot of people in the US, you have a lot of Chomskyites and a lot of anti-American exceptionalist people, what have you, who would complain and say, the Iraq War was a complete failure. We heard a lot of civilians' lives. It was for blood for oil, this kind of nonsense and that kind of stuff. You will also have a lot of people in Kurdistan, especially in Iraqi Kurdistan, who actually love President George W. Bush. Why? Because he helped free the Kurds from the oppression of Saddam, who they had faced for almost 3 decades. It's like groups like that and other groups as well, where, of course, on our side, we may view these people as, they're stupid, or, that it was a failure here and there. But to other people across the globe, we're heroes. We did actually something to stop the tyranny or stop the fatality. It may have been so small, it may have been insignificant in the long term, but you did something to stop the tyranny, and we did do something, I guess.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate for half a second here and say, wait a minute, maybe Saddam Hussein was a bad guy. Don't get me wrong, he is a bad guy and all that. But the fact that as a dictator, he kept everybody else in check, right? He kept all the factioning from happening. Did he not?
Well, that's the argument. I've heard that posed. I mean, gosh, there was a clip that Christopher Hitchens did on a narration of the day, or at least the time when Saddam Hussein during 1979, with the successful coup, he ousted. He allowed his Ba'athist party to rise, and he's sort of ousting all the dissenters out of the room. And Kanan Makia wrote also a book called A Republic of Fear, which he describes, Saddam's Iraq actually as a terrorist state. And the thing is that we could say he kept in check these people. We could say, okay, let's leave the dictator because he's keeping in check all the bubbly forces of Iraq and like that. Sure, you can do that. We can allow, the dictator to murder, kill, what have you for as long as time, because he's keeping in check all the bad guys, so we don't have to worry about him. He's killing his own people. He's butchering. He's shooting. He's blowing up. I
don't think anybody's going there. But I think at that point they were making the lesser of two evil choice, right? Either you let him there and hopefully he mellows out and try to replace him behind the scene.
I know I may be a little bit naive in me saying this, but I don't like the lesser of two evil. I don't like that scenario, but I understand where you're coming from.
So you're not going to vote for Hillary?
I understand the situation is that ultimately, for example, Saddam's Iraq was also religious as well. It has a religious in nature. He had the Fatah campaign, which is the faith campaign during 2000s, where he had bolstered his religious zealotry in his military and in his cabinet especially, because he had a lot of forces to deal with. And the thing is that you could say, yes, okay, if we had kept Saddam Hussein in check, then ISIS would never arise. Okay, that could be an argument as well. But the thing is that we can't foresee the future. We don't know every single action that we do may lead to this. But the very fact is that we can't sit back and do nothing and just say, okay, if we don't do anything, it's not our problem. For example, a lot of Assad apologists. I don't like to call them apologists, but this is a derogatory slur to them. But Assad apologists will say, okay, why don't we keep Assad in power? He's helping fight ISIS. Well, Assad at the moment is butchering kids. He's in the same position as Saddam Hussein. So the people are using the same argument except this time for Assad. And I say that, we have to get rid of all totalitarianism, and all totalitarians fall.
Well, and the invasion could have been done better. They weren't hiring Iraqis to rebuild their country and rebuild their economy. They just kind of went and destroyed everything and made a shitload of money. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is you got this family next door. The dad's beating the fuck out of the kids and the wife, and he's molesting the kids. But we can't do anything about it, because if we do, he's paying the bills, they're going to be homeless, and his brothers might show up and be twice as bad. Is that not Fair to say?
No.
That's kind of what this sounds like.
I don't want
Kevin?
that to be this case where we can't do.
I want to hear what Kevin. I want to hear Kevin.
Sorry, are you addressing me or Kevin?
Kevin.
No. What I was saying is, in the analogy of the woman that's being abused by her boyfriend, husband, whatever. If you jump in right away, a lot of times, and any security specialist or martial arts trainee will tell you that the women will turn on you.
Yeah, and you know what?
It has to come from the inside. It has to come from her asking for help.
And a lot of kids will defend their dad who beats the fuck out of them, molests them.
Yeah.
You still throw his ass in jail and give those kids some help. That is exactly what we do.
I
is
know.
It not?
I agree with that, but the difference is...
But he's paying the bills. And right?
I didn't say anything about paying the bills.
No, that's what we're talking about with Saddam Hussein keeping the place in check, and that's my analogy.
The difference is in this occasion, I went to the woman and said, "Do you require the help?" before jumping on him. The United States jumped on Saddam Hussein before consulting maybe the people.
No. He was firing chemical weapons at his own people, slaughtering innocent children.
Yeah.
We knew that for decades before we went in. Decades. Like, we're talking early 80s when this happened.
Yeah, well, can I just make a sort of a point? Like, for example, the sarin gas.
I just like arguing with Kevin. Sorry, it's fun.
Like, to take an example, like the sarin gas attack, like in 1988, like when like a whole bunch of when thousands of people were killed by Saddam Hussein in chemical attacks. We should have gone in earlier. I mean, during the first Gulf War, we should have done
fucking
something.
Kuwait, yeah, absolutely.
No, we should have. But the problem is that we waited too damn late, and this is why I can understand both the anti-war and the pro-war sides. That the anti-war side, I mean, I agree. The war should have been earlier. There should have been a war because a war was going to happen. We knew that because we had in 1998 we had like these UN regulations. Like we were going to say that Saddam Hussein has killed these bunch of people. He has a possibility of housing nuclear weapons, what have you, and all these other things. We were going to take them down. But the thing is that just to get back to, I guess, the wife beating thing is that. Like, in that case, you have Stockholm Syndrome. When the wife sees her abusive husband as, a nice figure, even though he abuses her.
Yeah.
It's the same with a lot of people. Like, for example, you get still people who say that, a life under Saddam Hussein was not that bad. It was not that bad. The dictator was not that bad. I mean, I talk to Egyptians right now who say, Mubarak, Hosni Mubarak, who ran his state like a police state, said, his government was not so bad. Compared to Sisi's government, who's the current military leader, like, it's not that bad. The thing is, I think that a lot of people don't even realize that they're caged or don't realize that they're in a closed society. I mean, for example, if you teach a bird its whole entire life, if it's born into a it's born into a cage and grows up, and if you open up the door, it won't go out of the door because its whole life has been in a cage. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
it's the mentality, I guess, that sometimes you have to. Some people don't know that they're in trouble, even though they are. It's the mentality, I guess, of that. Almost that this is the like a lot of people in closed societies think of their closed societies as better than open societies, even though they don't have basic human rights, basic liberties, what have you. They think of their society as better than the open society.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we have the United Nations, human rights. We have the Geneva Convention. All these different things, we're not enforcing them. That's my bitch. That is my complaint. If somebody here was molesting and harming children and killing children, there would be no question. It wouldn't be, let's go ask his wife and other remaining children what they think we should do about it. They could complain all they wanted, and we'd send them to counseling, and we'd throw his ass in jail. We just need to do the exact same thing with people like Saddam Hussein who are, gassing children. And we can't just be like, oh, well, it's a matter of their culture. There's this really funny story that I heard Richard Dawkins tell that I guess he had read, where the British had encountered some culture in India, somewhere in the Middle East, and they were burning women as like a religious practice kind of thing. Have you guys heard of this?
I think it was a Thuggees.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's what it was, but they said, well, it's our culture to burn these women, and the British said, yeah, well, it's our cultural practice to kill people who burn women, so fuck you.
Well, the other part of this, it would be nice, to think that the U.S. and the West intervened because of humanitarianism, but whoever was beating up the wife and kids, but actually, most of the motive was the oil, which in the case
that's a whole can of worms.
Right now. Okay, but they didn't get the oil. China got the oil.
But I'm saying that, a lot of times.
So I don't know if that's the case.
I'm saying a lot of times people. But I'm saying is a lot of times countries do not step in because of the humanitarianism. It's because they've got another agenda.
Can I just quickly just address that point? You are sorry. So what's your name again?
Nancy.
And sorry, Nancy, Kevin, and Tyler. Okay, I got them.
I call Kevin Nancy sometimes too, but for different reasons.
Okay. So. The thing about that, Nancy, is that I agree with you that yes, countries never go to other countries purely for pure altruism. Like there's no such thing as a pure altruism. There is, of course, a partly of an agenda, but I say that. Yes, we went, for example, when the United States partly went into Iraq also for oil. But the thing is that they didn't get a lot of oil from it. It was not the main focus. Because if they wanted to get fucking major oil, they would have gone fucking to either, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or another country with bigger oil productions, what have you. If it was purely for the oil, which is always, I hear the argument, blood for oil. Like
me too.
Purely oil, then we would see not only because at the moment, they never got a good deal out of Iraq. Even when they left it, they didn't get the oil production. They spent more on Iraq. I think they spent
they lost money. They didn't make money. China got all the fucking oil.
No, I agree. I think maybe my point. Now, in hindsight, maybe I should have made the point that generally countries go in when there's more self-interest than humanitarianism that's involved.
It could have just been Bush Jr., trying to measure his dick and say, I'm going to go back and get you because of you threatened to kill my dad. Because they really didn't make a lot of, the country itself didn't make any money. I mean, there's obviously a lot of the private companies that made a shitload of money, and they didn't boost the economy. That's the problem, is that people say, oh, they invaded, and if they hadn't invaded, all this stuff. No, they could have invaded better. They could have done a better job. It's not a matter of invading or not invading. It's you could have done a better job and actually boosted the economy.
Well, I'm going to need to interject here, because on that note, I'm going to need to close the show. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give you an opportunity here. The mic is all yours, my friend. If people want to know more about you, your books, you've written, all that, where can they find you?
Okay, so I unfortunately have not written any books yet.
Oh,
but I do have a site called philosophyismagic.com. So if you type that into Google, it should come up. And if you're on Facebook, please find me at Philosophy, the Stuff of Magic. That should come up at the moment. So however you search. And I am on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Stoic Viper. If you really want to follow me, or if you want to just call me up on Facebook, just Anthony Avice Du Buisson. And if you want to, email me, it's just anthonyavice2buisson@gmail.com. It's
because everybody can spell that last name, eh? Can you pronounce it?
I'll pronounce my name slowly and I'll spell it out. So, first name is Anthony. My last name is Avice Du Buisson. So it's AVICE space DU space BUISSON.
Excellent.
The guy with the French name and the Australian accent.
Anthony, before I let you go, I got a quick favor to ask you. Can I get you to say, "Hi, I'm Anthony Avice Du Buisson, and I took a left at the valley"?
Okay. Hi, my name is Anthony Avice Du Buisson, and I took a left at the valley.
Thank you so much, Anthony. You got friends in Canada. I hope we can have you back on the show.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about free will.
It's been a pleasure, Anthony. I've enjoyed this show more than I have a lot of other shows. And that's saying a lot. No, I really do. I think we got into a subject that needed a lot of clarification, and I think you were just exactly the guy to be able to put it in terms that most people will be able to understand and use, to form opinions later. Thank you. I appreciate
I'd also like to add that I used to believe in free will until I met Anthony, and we got into a debate, and he just fucking slaughtered me. It was embarrassing.
Oh, well, we should link that somewhere. Thank you
it
so
was
much,
nice
Anthony.
talking to you, sorry, it was nice talking to you, Kevin. It was nice talking to you, Nancy, and it was nice talking to you, Tyler.
I'll talk to you again, man.
Until next time, Anthony. And that was Anthony. Thank you so much, Anthony. Great guy. Love him. We'll have to bring him back for sure. And that takes us towards the end of our show. It was a big show. We had a lot of time there. How much was it? Like over an hour and a half? So, pretty cool. Alright. Coming up next week. Not exactly sure what we're going to do next week. I don't quite have the schedule with me, but we got plenty of good shows coming down the road. We have a show on the Great Flood. That will be interesting. We should be doing a show on climate change. We're supposed to have a show on prisons. We just got to get a hold of Martina, wherever she's hiding. We're supposed to bring Russell Glasser and Eli Bosnick. We're also working on that. Tyler, my friend, thank you so much for arguing with me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, I like winning.
Yeah. You can walk back to Chilla. Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.
Perfectly intelligent people can reach the conclusion that all non-believers are evil. What a fucked up statement. Do you realize what you're saying? But according to your book, this is how your God made me. Skeptical of anything that contradicts history, denies evolution, hates science, promotes mystery. I'd rather see the truth than to bask in my own ignorance. Rather be alone than surrounded by damn idiots. As long as there's a breath in my body, you can bet your last dollar I'll be working hard fighting this problem. Religion is a disease, it comes from culture, only true on a regional scale. Science is universal. Are you to say that Horus isn't real, but Jesus is? Or Zeus, Thor, Mithra, Vishnu, you don't believe in them? I think the reason is apparent. You do what you're told and believe in the God assigned by your parents. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. Now let me take a sec. Don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that thousands of children are raped by priests, and since they're holy men of God, they get away scot-free. And the Pope does his very best to keep it on the hush. Don't wanna affect business, he loves money too much. We know that they love the kids, but how the fuck can we protect them while they planning to molest them? We teaching them to respect them.
Fuck that.
The system is broke down, working backwards, and the only action or tactic I plan to practice now is to attack them. The parties of God's hands are bloodstained, millions of murders by believers, and they're all in God's name. And let me take a sec, don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that many atheists are told to be quiet. You're not alone, speak your mind, time to let it be known. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist.